This is session 5 of Grief and Hope, Trusting Him Daily. We covered a lot this week, but it all revolved around trusting God. So can you really trust Him? Can you trust Him when you feel like your world is still falling apart, but the world actually doesn't stop and instead keeps going? Can you trust Him when trying to find your new normal and you keep getting tripped up with reminders about your loss? Can you trust Him when you are triggered and allow Him to help you curb your response to those triggers? And can you trust Him while trying to find closure for your loss? Can you trust Him while facing changes due to your loss? Yes, you absolutely can. I have another story for you this week. This one is about trust. So once there was a businessman who was on a long flight when the first warning that something was wrong came over the PA. The pilot asked everyone to take their seats and fasten their seatbelts. After a while, another announcement came over the PA. The pilot calmly told the passengers that they would not be offering beverage service due to the unexpected turbulence on its way. As the businessman looked around the aircraft, he noticed that some of the passengers were becoming a little worried. Later, the pilot announced that in addition to no beverage service, there would be no meal service due to the expected turbulence. The plane came upon the storm shortly after this last announcement. Thunder could be heard all around the aircraft, and lightning could be seen lighting up the dark sky. Within a matter of minutes, the plane was being tossed around like a small toy, with passengers becoming more and more fearfully alarmed by every big bump. One moment the plane was lifted, and the next it was dropped as if it was crashing. The businessman was also becoming somewhat anxious as he looked around the plane nearby at all the other passengers. They were upset and alarmed. Some were praying. The future seemed ominous, and many were wondering if they would make it through the storm. Then he saw a little girl out of the corner of his eye. Apparently the storm meant nothing to her. She had tucked her feet beneath her as she sat on her seat. She was reading a book, and everything within her small world was calm and orderly. Sometimes she closed her eyes, then she would read again, and then she would straighten her legs. But worry and fear were not in her world. When the plane was being buffeted around by the terrible storm, when it lurched this way and that, and as it rose and fell with frightening severity, when all of the adults were scared half to death, the little girl was completely composed and unafraid. The businessman was completely amazed. When the plane landed, passengers hurried to get their stuff and to get off. However, this little girl sat and calmly waited for everyone to exit the plane. The businessman decided to wait as well, so he could talk to this little girl. After having commented about the storm and the behavior of the plane, he asked why she hadn't been afraid. The little girl replied, "Sir, my father is the pilot, and he is taking me home." Do you realize that your father is the pilot of this journey you are on? Someday he will take you home, but for now, just trust him and let him be the pilot. It's progress check time. I want you to check in with your group. Ask each other, how are you doing? What are your current needs? How is God working in your life during this time? Remember, don't let your focus shift away from Jesus. He is the only way to move from our grief to hope. Jeremiah 17:7-8 says, "But blessed is the one who trusts in the Lord, whose confidence is in Him. They will be like a tree planted by the water that sends out its roots by the stream. It does not fear when the heat comes. Its leaves are always green. It has no worries in a year of drought and never fails to bear fruit." You won't fail to bear that fruit either. Have a great week.